Will Florida State join the Big Ten? Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the channel. Let's jump in it today. So there's rumors out there that Florida State could be potentially joining the Big Ten sooner rather than later, as early as 2026, 2025, and 2026 is a very important date. So let's kind of go into this. Back in November 18, 2022, the athletic director, Michael Alford, for the Florida State Seminoles, gave a report to the Board of Trustees. Now, in this report, Michael Alford talked about, due to contracts and affiliating and networking, if you literally remove the contracts, Florida State would rank number 3 in revenue generated for the SEC. So if we look at that in terms of sponsorship and licensing, institutional support, ticket sales, other revenues, and donor contributions, if you look at that, over $40 million in donor contributions. What that tells us is that Florida State is a very, very big brand and very attractive, right? Now, if you look in terms of revenue generated, you have Texas A&M. They have mega donors. The Georgia Bulldogs, they've been winning. And with wins comes more and more contributions. So despite being down, Florida State is still getting support from its donors. And they would rank number 3rd, just ahead of LSU and even ahead of the Florida Gators. Now that surprised me, that Florida State, the Florida State generated more revenue than Florida if you remove just the contracts from the schools or from the conference contracts. So that was really big. On average, the SEC averaged about 94.5 revenue generated outside of the contract. Florida State is definitely ahead. Now, this was also kind of telling to me as well when we examine the revenue from the Big Ten. So we know the Big Ten produces massive donors, and they have these mega schools in terms of population. Ohio State is one of the largest, I think the 3rd largest school in the country, right? In terms of size. I think University of Central Florida is the largest. I think after that, it may be one more, maybe Ohio State, and then University of South Florida, something like that in those numbers of these mega big schools. So the fact that they're generating 3rd behind Ohio State and Michigan in terms of revenue, considering Florida State is not a very large school. If I'm not mistaken, they're about 25,000 in population, somewhere in there. Actually, I could look it up. What is this? We have it here. Central Florida, Texas A&M, Ohio State, Florida International. I know they were that high. University of Florida, Georgia State, Tennessee, Austin. Where is USF rank? Oh, USF rank was 8th in 2019, but I guess it's gotten a little bit smaller, but it's up there around the big ones. You want the USF, so obviously I'm kind of curious. I knew they were one of the larger schools, which is why I think they should go to the Big Ten. Hey, Big Ten. Yep. All right, so back to our report. So Florida State, in terms of revenue generated, in terms of population size, is a very large school, academically competitive school, and they would fit in well with the Big Ten. The problem with all this talk is that they did something very, very silly, very, very silly, if you ask me, and that was the AAC Grants of Rights Agreement, which means that, or the ACC Grants of Rights Agreement, which says that any school, whether you leave or don't leave the conference, the ACC will have rights to your home game contracts, right? I mean, at the time, these schools panicked. They panicked. Schools in the ACC panicked, and they signed this mega long-term deal that was extended in 2016 to 2035-36 school year. Isn't that not like, I'm thinking about, I wouldn't even want to sign a contract that long for security reasons. I mean, you got to back yourself, and Florida State didn't back itself. The ACC schools did not back themselves. They all deserve this. I want to make that clear. They deserve this. You got to back yourself and you got to back your sauce. Texas and OU, Oklahoma, they're like, nope, we're not signing anything extensively. We want options. We want options to leave if we have it. And they wouldn't commit to these long-term grants of rights agreement, which is crazy. So, but this grants of rights agreement is even more damaging, specifically around the fact, if we switch over to this screen, let me move it over a little bit, and we can see now this is from the Atlantic, though this is the source of this, with the assuming expanding playoffs in 2026, as you can see, the revenue will jump significantly from 2025 to 2026, and that's because of the expanded playoffs. But if we look at the numbers across the board, like I say, this is from the Atlantic, the ACC will fall behind the competitors of the Big Ten and the SEC. It gives them a boost in terms of competitiveness with the Big 12 and the Pac-12, but the the Big 12 is going to have a big advantage for the next 4 or 5 years. So let's watch and see what they do with that advantage, the Big 12, and see if they could turn that into a better agreement post 2029 whether or not they could compete with the Big 10 and the SEC. But as you can see clearly, the SEC is on a trajectory to far exceed even where they're at, especially with Oklahoma and Texas joining and making the 16-team conference. So I don't even know if these numbers are accurate, especially with Oklahoma and Texas joining earlier than what they were supposed to do. So, and then I have one more chart. This is also from the Atlantic, and as you can see, it includes the SFCP. So the numbers are a little bit different. I just want to show this one so we can see the trajectory. Obviously, we get the sharp increases when the playoffs kick in, right? But despite those sharp increases, the ACC would find itself losing out to the other conferences. And this is what Florida State has locked themselves in. So will Florida State be leaving? No. Will North Carolina leave the ACC? No. Will Clemson leave the ACC? No. Because despite not making as much money, it will be damaging to lose those grants of rights agreement that they've given to the Atlantic Coast Conference. And I want to make that clear. They have given away these rights, so I don't feel sorry for them. This is what they've done, and hopefully it creates an avenue for University of South Florida, or I hope University of South Florida, but for other schools, whether it be Tulane or whether it be Florida Atlantic or these other schools that have potential to grow and join the Big Ten and these other big conferences they're making moves. Hey, you made your bed, you got to lie in it. What do you guys think? Will Florida State or any of the ACC schools be leaving the conference anytime soon? Let me know in the comments. Catch you on the flip. Peace.